Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Q&A session for future adoptive parents. This is our webinar from Lifetime Adoption to help you get the answers to help you move forward to the next steps in pursuing your adoption and bringing your baby home through a safe and successful adoption. My name is Kim King, and I'm one of the adoptive family coordinators here at Lifetime. And I am co-hosting with Libby Deniston, who is a longtime coordinator here at Lifetime, and we are excited to speak with you and answer the questions that are on your mind. So if you are attending live, feel free to start typing in any questions that you may have, big or small, and I'll just go over a few details of how you can get in touch with us if you are new to Lifetime. Of course, you may have found us through our main website, one of many websites, but our main website is lifetimeadoption.com. That's where our free application is at lifetimeadoption.com/apply. You can also reach out by phone and get started, explore, request information, get some personal questions answered. The number here at Lifetime is 1-800-923-6784. You can also email apply, APPLY, at lifetimeadoption.com if you're not sure who your coordinator is. Maybe you do not have a coordinator yet. That's perfectly fine. Just send us an email to apply, APPLY, at lifetimeadoption.com. And you can also inquire through our website at lifetimeadoption.com by sharing some basic contact info and a few questions you might want to type in just through the website, and then that way one of our coordinators can get back to you by phone and email to get those questions answered and provide the information to help you get started. So Libby, thank you so much for taking the time to get all this set up for us and to orchestrate everything, you know, from the invites and all the follow-up that you do to put on these webinars for us. I know this is not the only webinar that you do. We also have private webinars just for Lifetime's families in addition to other training webinars too, so I appreciate it.
Well, and that's a good point, too. I know there's some people attending tonight who will probably be on our private webinar tomorrow. So they get a little double dose of Lifetime this week. And what's great about these Q&As is that we never quite know what we're going to get to talk about because the topics are all up to all of you. And that's really what is important, is for us not to just recite off what we think you should know, but to really hear what you need to know so that we can help you check off that list of questions, get the answers you need. Because, Kim, I think you would agree that one of the hurdles that comes along with, you know, you kind of go from, okay, I'm thinking about adoption to, yeah, let's adopt, to, okay, what do we do next? And then sometimes families get totally stalled because there's so much information about adoption today. And, you know, Marty Caldwell, the founder of Lifetime, she wrote a book, and it's called, it actually is titled Called to Adoption. And in that, she actually says the very first step when you want to adopt is just to decide what type of adoption you need and that you want. So at Lifetime, we work with birth mothers in the U.S. who generally are wanting to place their newborns at the time of birth into adoptive parents' hands. She usually wants you as the adoptive parents to leave the hospital with the baby. She wants to know where her baby went. That's why it's important to her to see her baby go into your arms herself rather than to just, you know, hear by word of mouth through a third party that the placement went as she assumed it would. So, you know, if you're on here and you're thinking, well, actually, I really have a lot of questions about international adoption. You know, you probably won't get a lot of that information here, but there may be some tips in our webinar that will help you because there are some similarities between all the types of adoption. But it's really good to learn about all the types of adoption, too, because I know there are so many people who just aren't even sure where to start with that. So we welcome you here tonight. We are just so glad that you are not one of those stuck families, that you're one of those people that's saying, I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep getting answers even while I'm undecided what I want to do. But there may be some of you listening tonight who are thinking, I already know what I want to do, and now it's just a matter of making sure I really understand so I'm equipped and prepared, and so that I can get the right help for the adoption I want to make happen. So this is a really great place to be. So if you have a question tonight, again, we want to encourage you to type that in the questions box. We'll try and cover as much ground as we can. But Kim, I think, you know, it's been a little while, but I got a question earlier, And it was really kind of like square one, especially when you're trying to get to know Lifetime. And I get a lot of these questions behind the scenes, especially on social media or after hours. But a lot of times it feels like a huge commitment just to apply with Lifetime. And in
Mhm.
reality, I know that that is the best way for us to more specifically share how Lifetime's program could help you. So, could you talk a little
Mhm.
bit about what your team is doing when a family takes a step to apply and help us learn more about their adoption goals?
Yes. So, of course, you can fill out your application on our website, lifetimeadoption.com/apply, and you're not committing to anything. What you're doing when you fill that application out is you're opening the conversation with Lifetime. So you're saying, I'm here and I have this desire to explore adoption further, or maybe you've already decided adoption is the path, and you're sharing a little about yourself. You're sharing a little about what you're open to, kind of what demographics you fall into, so that we can get an understanding of what your adoption needs are and let you know if we see plenty of birth mothers on a regular basis that are asking for a family like yours with your family structure, demographics, and that fall within what you're looking for and willing to accept in your adoption. So we're able to point you in the right direction, whether it's to go ahead and adopt through Lifetime, or if maybe fostering to adopt or international adoption outside of Lifetime, maybe through another organization, would be a better fit to meet your needs. So we're really here to help you explore further and get your bearings, and also assess if we could have a great partnership. It's important for adoptive parents to work with an adoption professional that's going to be a partner with them, going to be on the team with them and pursue your successful adoption with you and for you. And it's really important to ensure that you're on the right page, that you're on the same page, that they understand what your needs are. They understand if you have any limitations, and can help you overcome those, and can help present you to birth mothers that fit what you're looking for in your adoption, and have that kind of open communication and dialogue before you're committing to anything, which is something that was very important to Marty Caldwell, our founder, when she was setting Lifetime up, is that she never wanted to charge a fee for applying. And that is why Lifetime's application is absolutely free, because she's always said you shouldn't have to pay anything to find out if someone can help you. And there are many organizations out there that do charge processing fees and things like that, but even though we receive 200 to 400 applications a month, we still do not charge an application fee. We process and review each application one by one and give that response within a timely manner, usually within 1 to 5 business days. Maybe we can explore further, have a phone conference, that it's promising that we may have an opening that fits what you're looking for in your adoption. So the application is really no obligation at all. And you should have all the answers to that are asked just by, it's just asking information about yourself, so you'll already know those answers, and a little bit about what you're open to in your adoption. And these may be new questions to you, and you might not be 100% sure on those, but just put down the answers to the best of your ability.
Right.
And then during the phone conference, we guide you through those personally to help you understand the different preferences and how that impacts your adoption and your adoption with Lifetime, and if it's pointing, because your preferences really point you in a direction. So like if you're looking for an older child, you're probably not going to be adopting through Lifetime. If you're looking for a newborn, then that's kind of an arrow pointing you to Lifetime.
Yeah, it's so true. I have always thought that the application was a great opportunity to even just spark new questions or new discussion, because you might see something that you never even thought was possible. Like, oh, what do you mean up to 3 years old? Well, yeah, actually we would be interested in, newborn up to a toddler. Or maybe you think, I never thought about that before, but it's really important to me that I have the newborn experience, and that's okay too. So use the application not only to help us learn more about you, but also you get to learn a little bit more about yourself too. It's kind of it's really a great first step. Even if you ultimately decide that you need more time to think about your plans, or that you research other options, it gives you that place of better understanding what you're looking for, because if you're not sure what you're looking for, you may end up in a situation that later just kind of hurts your heart and leads to disappointment in your adoption search. But again,
that's right. And
yeah, I would just reinforce what you said, Kim. Like, don't feel like you have to have it all down, because I'm the kind of person like in high school, and they're asking you, write out your 5-year and your 10-year plan. I was like, can I talk about next year? Like, I can't predict the future. And, so if you're thinking, I don't know how to answer this, that seems like a huge commitment. I don't even know yet what I think about it. Just put down your best understanding of how you know it, because the whole point is it's just a step to getting more information. It's not locking you into some unknown future.
Right. There are no right or wrong answers. It's not a pass or fail questionnaire or test. For example, when it asks you about your time frame for adopting, we know people kind of answer that and interpret that in all different ways. Or what's your budget for your adoption? People answer that and interpret that in many different ways. There's not going to be one answer on there that you're going to answer in a air quotes wrong way or incorrectly, that we're going to say, oh, well, that one's out. We're probably going to call or email you and ask for more clarification, what you mean by that, or maybe based on the openings we have, that information is not really relevant. So we're more looking at the rest of your information. So just, kind of breeze through it. I mean, answer them thoughtfully and thoroughly, but on the preferences questions and some questions that you might not be quite sure about, just put your best answer down. And you can always follow up and say, hey, did you receive my application? On that one question, I answered it this way because I just wasn't sure. And we'll say, oh, don't worry about it. Or we'll say, okay, great, well, I can help you get a better understanding about that question, and we can talk about that, and what answer would you like to have now that you have more personal assistance getting that answered. During our phone conference, we offer a great deal of personal guidance. There are families out there that have timing questions. When should we start? Should we start before we move? Because, maybe they're moving in 6 months, or maybe they're moving in, 18 months. Maybe they're military and set for a rotation. There could be any number of things that a family is kind of juggling on their plate when they're considering when to start adoption. Or maybe they have a little one that they recently adopted or just had biologically, and they want to know how soon they should start planning their next adoption or their next baby through adoption. So we can help with those timing questions, planning, and also share options that are within Lifetime's program that can work with your timing. Because, if you're ready to start getting out there right away and being presented to birth mothers from the first week, we have that option. Even though, when I say that, sometimes families are like, but I don't have a home study, but I don't have a profile yet. It's like, it's okay. We have a way to do this. So, for example, if a family is brand new to adoption, of course they're not going to have their home study yet. We're going to be presenting their profile to birth mothers that aren't due for another 2-3 months in good faith while the family does complete their home study, which should be done within a couple of months. And if they don't have their profile yet, which obviously if they're brand new to adoption, they won't have a profile yet. That's perfectly fine. They're going to be working with Lifetime to develop their profile. Meanwhile, they can fill out a temporary profile that we can start presenting to birth mothers from the first week. So it's all up to you and what pace you want to move forward at. So if you're ready to jump out there right away, let birth mothers know that you're here, then definitely we have that option. Or if you're like, well, I don't really want to be out there yet, we wouldn't be ready to accept a match right now, then we have another option to help slow down the pace a little and fit your timing. So the application is the first step, and then during the phone conference, we can talk about other options that better fit your timing too.
Right, and we've had a couple questions come up about budget and about the cost to adopt. And sometimes we don't really go into that too much on webinars because there are variables, and so sometimes giving general info can be a little bit like, well, but you said on the webinar, but if you live in a state where all bets are off with the average, then that's sometimes a little bit hard for us to predict. But Kim, can we just have a candid conversation about what a domestic adoption looks like as far as budget these days? And then also, I think that's a good opportunity to talk about ways that you can lower those costs or the ways that other families are covering those costs, because that is one of the biggest hurdles. Is why I'd love to adopt, but the budgeting part, the funding part, just intimidates me.
Right. So in the U.S., in private adoption, the cost for all the services, from your home study to your legal services to the services provided by an agency such as Lifetime, all the birth mother screening and support, all the planning and coaching and guidance from beginning to end, including all the legal steps, from home study to finalization. Typically, it's going to range widely. There is a wide range. I'm going to say a good range for private domestic adoption these days is probably at least $25,000 to anywhere near $55,000 or possibly above. There is quite a wide range with that because every organization is different in how they handle their fee, what you're paying for, if you have to pay for things over again, the amount of birth mother expenses you're going to help with. At Lifetime, we're very conservative when it comes to birth mother expenses, so we rarely see ones over $5,000 total. But in other organizations, it may be very normal to spend $10,000 to $20,000 on her living expenses in addition to everything else. So that's where you can see a wide range of cost. With Lifetime's adoptions, from start to finish, typically what we're seeing is that families should expect $30,000 to $35,000. And as Libby said, there could be some variables there, like if your home study in your state is less expensive or if it's way more expensive than most other states. During the phone conference, when we're talking and kind of breaking everything down piece by piece for you, presenting the budget details for you based on what we know about your state and what we're expecting, you'll get a better handle on your budget. But typically, rule of thumb is that families should budget between $30,000 and $35,000, including the fee for Lifetime services, which is a flat fee, including their home study, including their legal, and even including a little for the birth mother expenses. So in Lifetime's program, you can actually limit the birth mother expenses and say, hey, we're open to helping with $2,500 in expenses. We're open to helping with $3,000 in expenses. Or, right now we're open to $1,000 in expenses. And, if we're able to increase that, we know that we always can have that option to increase that. So you control that when it comes to birth mother expenses, which helps keep the cost a little lower and more doable for you. And as far as how to fund adoption, there are some great things to start looking at. So start looking at the federal adoption tax credit and think about how that can help you feel more comfortable with using your savings, doing a home equity line of credit, borrowing from a 401k, or getting a loan like through Lightstream, which is on our funding page. If you go to lifetimeadoption.com/financing, lifetimeadoption.com/financing, there is a link to a loan place called Lightstream. They have given loans to lots of our families over the years. Our families have had positive experiences, and there are other places on there that you can apply for loans through. If you are comfortable financing the whole thing and that's your financial decision, then that is one way to go. And you know that the federal adoption tax credit is somewhere between $13,000 and $14,000, and you apply for that generally once your adoption is complete. So you have your child and you're now applying for the federal adoption tax credit. And it deals with your tax liability. So of course you're going to want to talk to a tax person, or if you have a great understanding of how taxes work and your tax liability, and you can read the writing from irs.gov, which is linked on that page, lifetimeadoption.com/financing. There is a link to the federal adoption tax credit. You can read up on that and just kind of see how that would work for your tax situation, how much you'll be getting back in the first year, second year, third year, applying for that federal adoption tax credit, because you don't have to just get it all only in 1 year. Maybe you don't have enough tax liability to get it all in 1 year, so you can come back that next year and third year. So definitely talk to a tax person. We are by no means giving any tax advice, but we just know that the tax credit does help families feel a little more at ease in their financial planning. Because if you're budgeting $30,000 for your total adoption fund, then it's nice to know that nearly half of that is coming back to you later. So maybe it's a little more doable. Maybe you're thinking, we can save a third of that. maybe our goal is to save 10,000 or sell things, do fundraisers, sell toys that we have, like the extra truck or recreational vehicle, things that you have that maybe you can just buy later, but sell now for the cash at hand to pay for your adoption services. And maybe somehow come up with that 10,000 and then only finance around 20,000, use around 13,000 from the tax credit to pay that off. And then now you're only paying off 7,000. So that is a great way to break it down into more doable pieces. And this will take planning. I'm not saying that every family has, $10,000 to be able to just put toward their adoption, but maybe in 6 months they can build toward that, or maybe in 12 months they can build toward that, or maybe they just want to get started right away and finance the whole thing, or maybe they're pulling from savings, 15,000 and only financing 15,000, whatever the case may be. Definitely check on employer reimbursements. Talk with your HR or admin department at work and find out if there are any adoption reimbursements or adoption assistance, because there are organizations out there, companies out there that have 2,000, that's the military, 2,000 per adopted child, or 3,000 or 5,000 or even 10,000. If it's not already written into your adoption benefits for work, then ask if they will contribute toward your adoption. And talk with us about what employer reimbursements or benefits you have as far as paying for adoption so that we can help you with planning. So maybe our payment plan. Let's say that your employer reimburses you $5,000, but first you have to show that you've spent $5,000. So you have to have a receipt showing you've spent $5,000. Well, the first payment in our payment plan is $7,500. So now you'll have a statement showing you've spent that. So then you show that to your employer, and they reimburse you that $5,000, and then you put that toward your next payment. So you see, it all can kind of work together, and it's very customized from family to family. But definitely employer reimbursements, savings, fundraising, federal adoption tax credit, and financing. And those resources are all linked on our website there that I gave, lifetimeadoption.com /financing.
I'm so glad that you mentioned all of that, and I tried to take some notes too so we could maybe highlight a webinar about this in the future. But, I know that even families who understand the cost to adopt, it's kind of like, well, do we finance or do we save? But the reality is I've seen most people combine all those things that you mentioned. They, maybe you work for an employer, which, by the way, if you go to the Dave Thomas Foundation, they even have a kit that you can propose to your HR at your employer to see if they would add an adoption benefit program. And even if that covered $500, maybe that would chip away at your home study fees. So little by little things come together, and please do not ever undervalue the power of fundraising and spreading the word. I have worked with numerous adoptive couples who have just started telling people we're hoping to adopt, and people just would come to them and say, I want to help, and they would hand them a check. Or they would donate items to sell in a yard sale and help them raise money. And there's so many awesome ideas out there too, just for different kinds of fundraisers these days. I cannot quote the name of the book, but I actually met the author of a book that I think is called Adopting Without Debt. Oh, I have to remember. But it's a really good book, number one, but also it was just full of things you may not even have thought of doing. And even if they only bring in 1,000 here and 500 here or something, it all adds up. And there was a really great question in here, Kim, that says, do you work with the prospective adoptive parents to help them stay within their budget? And the answer is absolutely yes. Lifetime does everything possible. Sometimes I like to say that it's more of like an a la carte thing, as opposed to, say, like a blanket fee that you might find with a different adoption center or a different agency where they give you a lot of anticipated costs. But what if your specific adoption match doesn't need those services that you already prepaid for? You're not going to get a refund on services not rendered. You're just paying for things expecting that might happen. But at Lifetime, we're walking through this to protect your budget. There is a lot behind the scenes happening also to help screen the birth mothers that you may be chosen by, so that if there are women who are just trying to work the system, or that may have, or even if she's legitimately interested in adoption, but maybe she has no insurance coverage and she can't use her parents' insurance because she's hiding the pregnancy or whatever. Maybe she doesn't even qualify for any insurance. If she won't get covered by the state for insurance, or there's some reason why that may not happen, we're going to protect your budget. If you already said, look, I'm working within this tight frame, and in my state, I'm only allowed to help with, say, $500 of medical bills, then we're not going to present you to a birth mom who might have $7,000 or $10,000 in just delivery costs at the hospital.
Right.
So yes, we absolutely are working to protect you. As much as we're working to protect that birth mother and respect her needs too. So we totally understand this is all a really legitimate conversation. I'm so glad we could talk about this tonight.
Yeah, me too. I think it's good to just give a frame of reference for cost. I think you can see that Lifetime's total budget is well within the norm nationwide. I think it was Adoptive Families magazine. They do a survey of adoptive parents every year that have completed adoptions, all types of adoptions. They ask about time frame, they ask about how much they spent, and they report all of those findings in their survey results every year, and that's Adoptive Families magazine. And I find that very interesting, and I have found that we always fit within the average or within the range of what families report, and typically we're less than half. We're on the lower half of cost, while at the same time we're offering nationwide. We're doing 24/7 support, our step-by-step guidance, low reclaim rate, high success rate. So we just have a really good model and fee structure to help you stay within that budget without having all the, like Libby was saying, unnecessary fees that you might not end up even needing in your adoption, or buku bucks for expenses for the birth mother when that's not really doable for you. So, and if you are wondering specifically a breakdown of what goes into that $30,000 to $35,000 total budget for everything from start to finish, just send me an email. My email is kim@lifetimeadoption.com. Just say, your first and last name, what state you live in, and just ask me for the budget details, and I'll email that right back over to you. So that might be helpful to have, and it'll have a little added detail as to what all to plan for the legal, why it could be a range of $6,000 to $10,000, and then you can ask follow-up questions too if there's something in there or something missing in there that you were looking for. But definitely email kim@lifetimeadoption.com if you want to receive those budget details as it currently stands in general, even though we may not have your application yet.
Right. There was another, where did it go? There was a question that says, can you start fundraising before you do your home study? I would say, I don't see why not. Now, I will say, if you're a family and you're thinking, well, I have a conviction within the last 12 months or something like that, I could understand there might be some very rare exceptions where I might want to know for sure that I'm going to be approved to adopt before I start asking people to help me fund it. But the average person who applies at Lifetime does not fall into those like really rare circumstances where you would not be approved to adopt. There was another, I love these two, Kim. Can I read these suggestions from Rose?
Yeah.
Rose is a currently waiting adoptive mom, and she offers all of you some of her wisdom from her own fundraising. She says you can do a virtual sale on Facebook. Just take pictures and start posting away of the items you're selling, and you tell your friends that the money is going towards your adoption, and people just love getting in on that. She said you can also coordinate a raffle, and now you can either purchase on your own a really cool item to raffle off, or you can ask if someone would donate. I've actually heard of places like Home Depot, or like other major appliance or electronic stores actually donating. Now, don't quote me on this, but I've heard of it happening. But you could get a really great item and then charge, $5 for a raffle ticket, and everybody's, maybe buying 20 tickets or something like that. That pretty soon you're raising money for adoption and getting the community around you too. and then someone ends up with a cool prize. You post it on social media, use the publicity to get the word out about your adoption again. It can be a circle. So thank you, Rose, for these ideas, the raffle and doing a Facebook sale. Every little bit counts too. Oh, Shelby says we did a garage sale as an adoption benefit, and people donated so much stuff. They were just cleaning out, and we got the benefit. We raised over $2,000. Holy moly, that's great. Oh, and then another one, restaurants hold an auction during their business hours to attract more people, so you could get baskets donated. So these are all just even a few ideas. You might even have one of your own or one that you saw someone else do. Like I know these days it's really easy to find like pre-ordered t-shirts. So if you know someone who makes cool designs, they might make a design for you for free. Or you can even go on Etsy and find, I've seen this before, there are people who just sell a design that you could put on a t-shirt or something for like $15, maybe even if it was $40 or $50, it would still be worth it if you got enough people who wanted to have this really cool design on a t-shirt. And then you find a place that prints t-shirts on demand, so you don't have to order ahead of time and anticipate how many extra larges, how many smalls, how many mediums or whatever, that you are getting people to order ahead of time, and then those places fulfill it. There's just a lot out there these days. The internet
I
has
like
blown
that,
things
Libby.
up. Yes.
People who might not be familiar with printing and publishing and things like how we're used to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, are you there?
That a little more, Libby? Can you hear me?
It cut out. It cut out right after you say.
Okay.
People in publishing don't know what I'm used to.
Yeah, so we do all our own in-house marketing materials and outreach materials, educational resources, such as, Libby's one of our writers. She's one of our graphic designers. So she and I have worked on a lot of the things over the years. So we're familiar with print on demand. But can you explain that a little bit so they can understand that for if they are doing a T-shirt? Because that is a lot easier, I think. Like you said, print on demand is the type of
Well, it's so if you picture the older days, if you wanted to do a T-shirt fundraiser, you would have to order ahead of time and then just hope you sell them all. But when it's print on demand, I'm racking my brain to try to remember the website where I've seen at least two of these happen this year. But it's a cool site where you tell people, I've got this fundraiser set up, go pick your T-shirt and your size. They pay like $20 or $25 to get this like one-of-a-kind T-shirt. And then when it reaches a certain number of sales, like say 15 sales, like 15 T-shirts ordered, then it sets a deadline to collect the rest of the orders, and then we'll print them. So if only one person or two people goes on and orders, you're not going to worry about, okay, well, I just ordered 100 T-shirts and only 2 people are paying for them. So now I have all these T-shirts and I don't know what to do with them. Instead, it's you're only getting T-shirts printed at the sizes that were ordered ahead of time. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I just went on and Googled print-on-demand shirts. First of all, Google already knew what I was looking for, so it means other people have done this too. And there are actually YouTube videos that talk about this too. So YouTube is a great way to learn.
Yes. Make sure that you understand fine print. I will add that. You just want to make sure, because all of these too, these companies, they have to make a little bit money to run their team and to run their website. So you want to also understand, okay, this sounds like a great deal and I could earn this much profit with my fundraiser, but like, what are the fees? Are they taking 3% of the profits, or are they taking 10%, or whatever that is? There is a family I know that did one of these, and I'm searching through her Facebook right now to try and jog my memory of where it was. But again, these are just ideas. Oh, I think I found it. Let me see. There's just so many ideas these days. Okay. So another question, let's see, was kind of along these lines. What happens to the money spent if the birth mother decides to parent once she's given birth? That's a really good question too. At Lifetime, Kim, why don't you talk about the difference too, about how we don't have a match fee, and so that part of the investment is protected too.
Yes. So if you are working with Lifetime, that means that you've already paid for your program, you've paid for your services. So when you accept a match with a birth mother, you don't pay us anything else to match with that specific birth mother. Therefore, if she chooses to parent or for whatever reason the match falls apart, falls through, the adoption isn't complete, and you still need to be matched with a different birth mother, you don't pay anything extra to Lifetime to do that. Now, the question is regarding birth mother expenses. If you've helped with some of her bills, so if you've helped with $300, for a couple months toward her rent, or you paid $25 toward her copay every time she went to the doctor for a prenatal appointment for a few months, those that you have spent are not coming back to the adoptive parents. The state law does not, every state has different laws about this, and we're not a legal professional at all, but I don't know of any states that require a birth mother to pay that back because, the law protects people from selling babies. They don't want people to think that if they're getting assistance, they have to place their baby. So it does have that protection in place, which means that that is at risk for adoptive parents. So what you should do is make sure that you set a budget that you are comfortable with, knowing that if she chooses to parent, that she's not giving that back. Now, she may not have used all of that. She may have needed hardly anything and then chose to parent, and then you still have your budget in place for the next birth mother. Or she might have used some of that, and you might need a little time to financially rebuild that, and then be presented to birth mothers as soon as you are ready, or as soon as you're ready to let us know what your budget is for birth mother expenses again. For example, if you're open for $3,000 and then she used $1,000 or $2,000 and it didn't go through, then maybe you're left with $1,000 toward birth mother expenses for a little while until you can recover from that, build your fund back up a little bit, and just keep us posted on that. You can choose any amount. There are not set amounts for birth mother expenses anymore. You can choose any specific amount you want to have as your cap for total birth mother expenses.
Yeah.
Now, we also help try to keep those costs low anyway by helping her get signed up for assistance, government assistance. So like if she doesn't have insurance or she can't be on her parents' insurance, then most likely she will qualify for government assistance. So you'll see little to no medical costs there. For housing, help with housing, sometimes families are just shocked that they would maybe help with a mortgage, but it's not usually a mortgage. It's usually like, oh, she's renting a room in someone's house and her rent is $400 a month. So just kind of think on a smaller scale in some of these cases. She might need help with a bus pass, or she might need help catching her phone bill up so that her cell phone bill stays turned on and she can stay in good communication through text and phone calls. That is very helpful to you, to Lifetime, and to that birth mother, of course. So we really try to keep it pretty minimal as far as birth mother expenses, while at the same time ensuring that she has the things that she should have, such as food and shelter, medical care, a way to communicate. And we also send food and clothing to birth mothers, and we send labor bags to them. And we do all these things to help minimize the cost, and also just because we care for her and we want her to know we're here for her, and we're able to help in some of these tangible ways that are through Lifetime Foundation, which you can check out Lifetime Foundation online, lifetimefoundation.org. We have a Birth Mother Blessings program, Birth Mother Educational Scholarships, so you can read up on that on lifetimefoundation.org too. So we really try to keep the birth mother expenses lower. Part of our recipe for success is that we don't match until she's at least halfway through her pregnancy in most cases, so that's going to naturally minimize the amount of expenses that are going to accumulate during that match.
Yes, I can't emphasize enough, when you're researching people who could help you adopt, ask them, will there be more fees involved once I'm matched? Because every program's a little different, and you don't want to be surprised. That's right. It's such a good question to say, okay, so it's this much to get in the door and get presented to birth mothers, and then when I'm matched, this much more will come up. This might be at a different program. This isn't how Lifetime is. But then to continue forward and just say, okay, what happens if that birth mother changes her mind? and you just need to know to prepare, because we
Right.
unfortunately end up hearing from some people who call and say, I wish I had known about a program like Lifetime before, because I ended up spending so much more just to finally reach a successful match than it seemed like I would in
Mhm.
the front. So you just kind of need to know what to expect. That's the bottom line, because then you know how to prepare and you know how to protect yourself as much as possible, because it's a risk, but it's a risk worth taking. I will have never hosted an adoption webinar with a testimony of anyone who said that even the emotional risk was not worth it when they reached that baby that was meant for them. So you just, but you have to be wise too, wise and clear-headed,
Mhm.
and know what's going on. Don't just go in blind and hope it'll all work out. You need
You
to take
know,
control of what you can.
speaking of not going in blind, really, take some time to get to know the adoption professional.
Mm-hmm.
Have conversations with them. Send questions via email. Read their website. Read their frequently asked questions. Ask what their services are for birth mothers. Ask what their outreach is for birth mothers. And if you say, hey, well, how do you find birth mothers? What's your outreach like? And they say, well, I usually network with a few different agencies and attorneys that I have contacts with. Well, then right there are going to be huge unexpected expenses, because those other professionals that are initially working with that birth mother are the ones working with that birth mother. They're going to have their fee in addition to what you're paying whomever it is that connected you to them, that might be more just like a middleman. So do they work directly with birth mothers? How do those birth mothers find them? Do they work only with a local rehab center, so that most of the birth mothers are abusing drugs and maybe in a treatment program? Do they mainly find birth mothers through Craigslist? What's their screening like before any matches are made? Is there a screening process in place? I am thinking of specific cases that families have shared with me about their experiences where they got sucked into situations because they didn't know that there were going to be these extra fees, or they didn't know this birth mother just found this professional on Craigslist and that there was no screening in place, or that this professional is expecting them to pay that birth mother money directly, which you should never do. You should never give a birth mother money directly. It should always be handled by your adoption professional, whomever is doing your legal work. That's actually the best person to assist with birth mother expenses, that attorney who is familiar with those state laws that pertain to your expenses and can distribute those directly to where they're needed. So you would send that $300 for rent to the attorney. The attorney would then send it to her landlord or rental office.
Really good. And there's so much more. A lot of what I know Kim and her team do is that when you apply and your application is approved, basically you're approved to get to know us better and we get to know you better. And so it just goes step by step. It's not, okay, you're approved, jump in the deep end. And what you really get to do is you get to know Lifetime, is you get to walk through based on your specific search criteria, the goals that you have for your adoption, that you get to hash out. Okay, so we would be willing to cover medical expenses, but in our state, these are the requirements. And so then we talk with you more about what that could look like for you, because now we know more about you. The things we can talk about tonight are going to be real general, because we don't,
Right.
we don't know what all of you are looking for yet. So, and if you're already working with us and maybe you're at the stage where your application was approved and you've been asked to schedule a one-on-one phone consultation with Kim or Jen or anyone on her team, schedule it. It doesn't obligate you to anything. It's really the best way for you to get even deeper answers related to your personal goals, because they'll walk through everything that Kim has described. They'll give you even more specific examples of families just like you and how they found solutions, resources that worked for other people who are looking for what you're looking for. And then if there's things they don't know, they're never shy about saying, let me find out for you. And we have a lot of professionals who are willing to answer things for us on a hypothetical basis. So, don't be shy about that. Kim, there was a really good question about study
go
that I
ahead.
was hoping that we could get to too.
Yeah, I was actually going to
Perfect.
talk about home study too. Go ahead.
So I love the way she said this, and we don't get it said this way, but I love this because I think this is what everyone is thinking when we talk about adoption home study. I would say that is probably one of the top, maybe 2 or 3 areas where people kind of get really nervous because they're thinking, I've heard things about home studies, and I know that I would be a good parent, but having someone else tell me that feels very vulnerable. And so here's a
Right.
great question here from Shanna, and she says, do you coach families if they have never had a home study? And she goes on a little bit more about her situation, but can we talk a little bit? I wrote down a question. How does Lifetime help us to prepare or know what to expect with the home study?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it starts off with just acknowledging that you get to choose your own home study provider. They're not assigned to you. You choose your home study provider. You are hiring them to provide this service for you. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you get a chance to talk to them first, find out what their requirements are, if they have any requirements that are layered on top of basic state requirements. Maybe they require a certain amount of training, although the state doesn't require that. So you can opt to hire them and go through that training, or just seek someone else who doesn't require that and just meet the state requirements. You can also discern if you have that rapport with them. Do you feel this is someone that is here to help you? What type of approach do they have when they're discussing a home study with you? Do you feel comfortable sharing the most personal details of your life with this person? So you get to choose your home study provider. Are they responsive? Are they on the ball? Are they organized? Just send a few questions as a test to see what the timeliness is like. Because if there are several days between correspondence, that may mean that she's pretty busy right now, and maybe you should look elsewhere for a home study provider who is responsive and has room in her caseload for you. So you get to choose your home study provider. Look at timeliness, personality, and what they require, if they require anything on top of the basic state requirements. Some are male, but I'll just speak in terms of females. She's going to send you a packet of paperwork to start filling out. She will direct you as to when and where and how to get your background check started. So just be sure to follow her instructions to the T, and you will be fine. She will let you know her availability for home visits, and they are usually very accommodating. A lot of home visits are on the weekends and in the evenings when couples are home to be able to have a home study provider over. They don't just pop by unexpectedly like in the foster system, but they schedule this in advance. And that's a thing that you should ask about when you're hiring a home study provider. Something you should ask is, how soon should I expect to finish a home study if I'm really on the ball on my part? How quickly could this be done? Usually 6 to 8 weeks is time frame for a home study, because you're going to schedule home visits, interviews, you're going to do all your paperwork, you're going to start your background checks, you're going to schedule yourself for a physical to be seen by your doctor so that they can just write a little note saying that you are medically cleared to take care of a child, that you're physically able, and that you have a normal life expectancy. So that's as far as like the medical clearance. And you're going to gather all your documents together and provide those to the home study provider, and she will compile that all into a report, and she will also combine the written answers that you have and the verbal answers that you gave during the interviews with her into a written report of what your life is like, what your parenting views are, the reasons for adopting, your healthy outlook on adopting and parenting through adoption, what your community is like, what your family support network is like, those kinds of things, the stability that you have to offer. As far as marriage, most couples are married when they're adopting, and they are the home study provider wants to know how you resolve any disagreements in the marriage. What has that looked like? And going forward, what can that look like? What was it like for you being parented growing up, and how will you do things similarly or differently from how you were parented? They're going to ask questions like that. So it is a process. It's not just a home inspection, okay, you have that third room for a child, or, oh, well, we did your background checks, you don't have a felony, so you're clear. It's more of a process of getting to know you. It's more of a people study. And the home inspection is just one part of the home study. Every family that has ever adopted has had to go through a home study of some shape or form, whether it was through the foster system, adopting a relative, adopting a stepchild, adopting internationally, adopting like through Lifetime. They've all gone through it. Everyone goes through the home study. So it is you are vulnerable, you are sharing about yourself. It is all private and confidential. So that's why I think to, pick a home study provider you're comfortable with. If something rubs you the wrong way right off the bat, just look for someone else. I mean, you get to hire this person and they're going to come into your home. So you might want to choose someone you enjoy spending some time with.
Well, and also it's temporary. So if it's not someone you would choose to have in your inner circle, but you trust that they're getting the job done, then roll with the flow. Lifetime also will provide you referrals. When you start up with Lifetime, your coordinator will reach out and make sure that if you need referrals for completing your home study, that you get people who have been successful in helping previous Lifetime families. And when we hear updates from our families that a place they worked with was not helpful or was not efficient, we cross them off that list. We do not recommend them. So we really try and keep that updated so that you also are kind of knowing where to start. But I love that you brought that up, that they get to choose who they work with. They're not just told, here, deal with this one person. And really, I love this little testimony from Rose. She says, oh my gosh, I was so scared. All of those nerves were for nothing. My social worker said 2 things to me that I will hold in my heart forever. She said, not if you get a baby, but when. I'm here to make sure that the baby you get is going to a home filled with love and good intention. And so that's really what I hear the most, is from adoptive parents who say that they were actually glad for the process and they learned a lot about themselves. They even may have gotten some resources like Kim, you just said, they might ask you, well, how do you resolve conflict in your marriage? And I was thinking, how would I even answer that? Like, kind of depends on the argument we're having.
Totally.
And how stubborn I feel,
depends on a few things.
But you might say, well, our goal is always to talk it out and maybe pray together or whatever that might be. But you might say, but sometimes I just need space, and he knows that, so he'll give me a little space while I calm down or something. And the person who's helping you with your home study might say, I hear that a lot. Here's a really great book or a really great class you can take on that, so that when you have this little added instigator in your home known as a newborn, that you're not pushed to your limits in your marriage, that they're really trying to help stabilize you and better equip you, not criticize you, not tell you you're not good enough or ready enough. They're just trying to better prepare you, better fortify you, is kind of a word that comes to mind. And then what's cool is that this home study provider gets to know you. And when you adopt, they come back in as a follow-up to help you finalize the adoption. And so you might have all these new questions now that you know who this birth mother is that you connected with through this baby. And now that you've had this baby in your life for days or weeks or months. And you might have more specific questions, especially if you're a new parent, or maybe it's been a while since you did newborn care, that you can just honestly ask them for some tips and resources about parenting. They'll know how to point you to. And I've even worked in situations where adoptive parents welcomed a sibling group or a toddler, and that the home study provider came in as sort of like a little extra support and pointed them in the direction of resources to address that specific child's experience or needs. So one comes to mind was a family I helped years ago, and they adopted a sibling group of 3. Well, the oldest and the youngest they adjusted pretty well, but the middle guy, he was only 1, but because the birth mother was really young and she was juggling 3 little kiddos in diapers and nursing one of them and trying to probably transition the 1-year-old to a bottle and to regular food, that little middle child he kind of fell through the cracks of her attention. And not for lack of love. He was loved beyond anything. But when the adoption happened, the adoptive parents noticed that he just kind of needed a little extra support. And the home study provider helped them kind of catch that. Like, okay, these 2 kids in this sibling group look like they're adjusting fine, but he may need a little extra counseling or a little extra one-on-one time. So that home study provider is not there to get in your way of the adoption. They are just there to, like Rose said, help make sure that this baby you adopt is coming into a home filled with love and good intention. Marty likes to call it a people study. It should really be called a people study and not, an evaluation of your home.
Mhm.
But
Well, and Libby, if I can just put a little more, if people are wondering, wait, I completed a home study, now I have the baby. Are you saying I'm still going to meet with the social worker again? How long does this go on? When are we ever going to be just us? Mm-hmm. Well, so
pretty quick.
Before you finalize, good to talk about what are post-placement visits, and that's what Libby's talking about. Post-placement visits, every state requires a family to complete at least 2 post-placement visits, meaning the child is in your home now and you haven't finalized yet. They need to have a scheduled appointment to meet with the family in the home a couple of times at least, depending on the state requirements, before they can recommend that the adoption be finalized. And a lot of times during post-placement visits, these are more for like international or foster child or sibling or older child adoptions. There's not as much additional outside support needed when people are adopting a newborn, although it doesn't mean that there isn't support needed. But, this kind of is a catch-all for families who might need any number of different types of support. So 2 post-placement visits. So you can ask your home study provider on the front end, as you even consider hiring them for the home study initially, what are their services for post-placement visits, what is required, what's the cost, how many, what does that look like? So you kind of know what to expect and can decide if you're going to hire them also for your post-placement visits.
Also, I think for them, because this is how it is at Lifetime, our team, we really get to know you guys and we get to know the birth mothers we help. And so when you go on to adopt, it's a little bittersweet because now we know we're not going to be in touch with you as much anymore. And when you send us photos and updates of how well you're doing or what life is like now with baby at home, that's just very sweet for us. So honestly, I'm not a home study provider, but I could say, having spoken with several of them, that they also really look forward to post-placement visits because they want to celebrate the milestone you reached that they were a part of helping you get to. So it's not about coming in and saying, it looks like you don't really know how to diaper your newborn well, or like you're not very good at swaddling or you made that bottle hot or whatever, it's as much about them also coming in to just be a part of this milestone with you. And again, to continue what they started. They want to see that through. But there are legal requirements for adoption. Gone are the days of centuries ago where someone could just leave a baby in a yard and you could raise that child and not tell anyone that there was ever a different story. That is not. Everything has to have a paper trail these days, and your home study provider is part of getting what the court needs to finalize your adoption. So on that note too, that is also one of the areas that you may have more control over. You may not have control over how quickly you stand out to the right birth mother, but a lot of times when people say, how long does it take to complete a home study? Our answer usually starts with an average of 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, but it's also dependent on how quickly you get the things submitted to them to write the report. And I've worked with families that took 6 to 12 months just to get physicals and documents to their caseworker. So some of that is going to fall in your court. And the best advice that I've heard from adoptive parents is to just plug away at it every day until it's in your caseworker's hands. And then okay, now it's just a matter of time. She's going to write the report and I'm good. Like I have submitted everything that I need to. So don't put that off. But also, Kim, we do get asked a lot, do I have to have a home study before I apply with Lifetime or before I start with Lifetime? And the reality is most of the people that we help at Lifetime start their home study the same time they start up with Lifetime.
That's right. Yeah, I would say within the first couple of weeks after starting the program here, because what they'll do is they'll first apply to get some guidance, find out what direction they want to take. Then they'll start their program. Then they'll have their welcome call. And then they'll get that referral from their primary coordinator here at Lifetime for a local home study provider that they can hire. So then they'll start that and they'll start working on their profile this lifetime. And meanwhile, just depending on what they're up for, they might have a temporary profile already going out, or they might just be taking it one step at a time and in a payment plan. Either way is perfectly fine. You can complete your home study and complete your full profile before you're fully active if you'd like to, or start getting out there right from the start. But that's usually what people do. They usually just have their home study starting once they're started with us. It's really important to know what direction you're taking before you start the home study. And by that I mean like specifically what kind of adoption you're looking for, and also what adoption professional you're hiring, what program are you accepted into, and what are their requirements. I mean, we'll let you use a home study provider if you're choosing, but not all agencies will allow that.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes they have a specific provider you have to use, or you have to use them for your home study. So
I would love to know, whoever's listening, who's ever hung in with us past our hour here, what stood out tonight, or what you found helpful, or maybe what you'd like to hear on a future webinar. We just truly hope that even those of you who may be very familiar with some of the things we talked about tonight, that there's always a little something that comes out, or maybe just reminds you, oh yeah, I forgot about that, or I need to make sure I remember to ask about that, or something. So please let us know what stood out, what helped, or where you might need more information about your personal adoption. Kim gave out her email earlier in case you need something that she spoke to. But of course, if you have a coordinator at Lifetime, make sure you reach out to her. If you're not sure who that is, you can always call and we'll get you the right person. But you can also just generally, if you don't know who to contact at Lifetime and this is maybe the first connection you've ever made with us, a general email is apply@lifetimeadoption.com. But I know that, Kim, you are happy even if you delegate that email to the person who's better able to answer it, if you get it right to your inbox. She's very timely and efficient, and she really cares about you getting the right info. So don't hesitate to reach out. Our whole team is here to help you. And we would love to know what stood out, or where we might be able to partner with you as you keep moving along this path to adoption. So Kim, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up tonight?
Well, if you do have a friend, or if you yourself are not sure where to start and you're feeling a little overwhelmed, the best thing to do is just call us. You're not obligating yourself to anything, and there will definitely be someone here who can speak with you on the spot or call you back when they have some time open to discuss what your situation is and give you some tips and pointers and help you go away more encouraged. Maybe with a plan in mind, with some basic steps in mind. So definitely reach out to us if you're at the beginning of feeling a little stuck. Don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help you from the very beginning and walk you through all the steps to the completion of your succcessful adoption.
And beyond.
And beyond. We are still here even after adoption.
So I found the T-shirt fundraiser website that I was thinking of. And it's Bonfire. So
oh yeah, I remember that one.
I have seen a couple different families use it, and they pretty much walk you through how to set up a fundraiser. So there's different stuff just like that, though. You don't have to just latch on to just that. I know adoptive parents who fundraise for their adoption in multiple ways. And again, the cool thing about it is that the more you're spreading the word about your adoption, you never know who might tell your future child's birth mother that you're waiting to adopt, and somehow you connect. It kind of gives me goosebumps to think about that, that it could come back to you one day that my friend had a T-shirt with this really cute design, and she said she got it as a part of a fundraiser for her neighbors who were adopting, and she told me about you guys. Well, I'm pregnant and I'm due in December. What do you think? I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yes.
So, but that is, I just wanted to throw that in before we wrapped up. So if you have questions, please reach out to Lifetime. If you are currently a Lifetime family, then we will look forward to seeing you on tomorrow night's private webinar. And Kim, I want to thank you for making time to share all of your expertise with us tonight as well.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great night.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.